Hello, all, and thank you for joining us for the Dyspraxia Lived Experience panel. Today, I am joined by some wonderful dyspraxics who are going to share with us today some really insightful looks into what life with dyspraxia is. Now, if you're watching across YouTube and Facebook, all of the comments that you share, we will be able to see. If you are watching across Instagram, we won't be able to see your comments straight away, but I will be able to relay them back to our team here. If you are able to move over to YouTube, then perfect, but please don't feel like you have to. We will have a Q&A section at the end of this panel meeting. So if you do have any burning questions, do pop them into the chat now or wait until later on where we'll be able to answer them. Now, I'm going to introduce you, or should I say allow our panel members to introduce themselves. Philip, would you like to go first?
Good evening. Thanks, Crystal. My name's Philip. I'm based in Kildare in Ireland. I was diagnosed with dyspraxia back in 1998. And my aim in life at this stage is, due to the amount of barriers I've had to knock down over the years due to my dyspraxia, I want to create a load of right-of-ways so those coming behind me don't have to endure the same battles that I did.
Thank you. Charis.
Hi, so I'm Charis. I'm an editor for the Dyspraxia magazine, and I run several Facebook groups and a community group for adults as well. And thank you for inviting me, Crystal.
You're welcome. So I'm Crystal. I am the founder of Dyspraxia magazine. I've been an advocate for well over 10 years now, and I am based in Southampton, UK. Adriana, would you like to go next?
Hi, my name is Adrienne. I'm the current Miss Beauty UK 2024. I've been involved in pageants for 6 years, and I feel like as a dyspraxic, I'm able to advocate this within my pageant journey.
Thank you. Toomey.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much, Crystal, and everyone at Dyspraxic magazine for this opportunity. My name's Timmy. I live in Newcastle. I'm the founder of the Black Dyspraxic, which is all about primarily talking about the intersectionality of race and with dyspraxia and other forms of neurodivergence. And I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, we have Athena.
Hi, I'm Athena. I was diagnosed with dyspraxia at age 7, and I'm an advocate posting on social media such as Facebook and Instagram to educate people about dyspraxia.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know it's Sunday. It is the last day of Dyspraxia Awareness Week. So it's been an incredibly long week. So I really appreciate you, spending some time to come and chat with me today. It really means a lot to me. So as I said, if you are watching this live, pop your comments in the comment section and we will hopefully be able to review those at the end of today's session. But firstly, I have some questions for our panel members. So our first question this afternoon is, when were you first diagnosed and how did that impact your understanding of yourself? Now I'm going to start with Philip on this one. How would you answer?
Thank you. As I said in my intro, I was diagnosed back in 1998 when I was in 5th class. Up until that point, my mom was minding kids as I grew up, so she always spotted herself that I was sort of behind on the milestones and how I interacted. But every year when she went up to my parent-teacher meeting, she was told it's a phase, he'll grow out of it, which evidently didn't happen. It took till 5th class for a teacher to say there was an issue, which thankfully originally it went down. They thought it might have been dyslexia with touch dyspraxia, but it was later put in as full dyspraxia being the main component. How it impacts my understanding is more like my mom. I knew there was something there, so it's finally nice to know what it was, and that helped me get the correct help I needed as I went into 2nd level and 3rd level to make sure I achieved everything that I could.
Amazing. Charis.
So a doctor actually told my mom when I was, I think, 5 or 6 years old, but this was at a party and he didn't tell her how to do anything about it, how to get it official. I also wasn't told. So when I was 15, my mum told me, because I says, well, I've been to a party, people are taking the mickey out of me. Why? I just, trying to have fun. She told me. But I wouldn't get an official diagnosis till I was 18 at Nottingham Trent University. So I went to an educational psychologist, and they said it was dyslexia with dyspraxic motor neuron tendencies. Obviously, it wasn't a surprise because I went in asking for that diagnosis. But at university, they kind of treat it as the end of the process when it's not. So they're like, here's your piece of paper with your diagnosis. Go away now, essentially. So I was 18 when I was diagnosed, but I think I was about 21, 22 when I actually found out there was a community with other people like me. When during COVID, when I came across the Dyspraxia Foundation through Facebook because I was bored, so I searched for it. And then the following year, I became a dyspraxia youth champion, which I was until the day they closed. And I also won the Matthew Hunt Award for services to the dyspraxic community under the age of 25. Obviously, that's slightly different because I knew I was looking for that diagnosis, but you still need to having it and accepting it are two different things, really.
I think I was 18 or 19 when I got my diagnosis at university, which was purely by accident, kind of. So I went for a dyslexia diagnosis, and I was told, "Oh, you're definitely dyspraxic." Um, I didn't have a clue what they were talking about, and very similar to other people, if they're, you know, lucky enough to even receive a diagnosis, was given a leaflet and told to look at the Dyspraxia Foundation's website, and I was none the wiser of what was happening. So my understanding went from nothing to not a lot more. So I made it my mission to learn as much as I could about it. I think I should clarify as well, even though the question is when you were first diagnosed, self diagnosed is just as valid here in this space. They are the same. Adrian, how would you share yours?
So I was first diagnosed in further education, so late teens. Again, it's very similar to the other you guys. Dyslexia with features of dyspraxia. Sent away, and that was about it really. But within my education, like I feel like it's a positive thing because at the end of the day, I've got myself through it, which you guys have as well. So in a way, I feel like it's a positive that, even though we weren't diagnosed till late, we've managed to just muddle through. But then also, like, it kind of brings that understanding of yourself of the why I am who I am, if that makes sense. Why I'm so clumsy, why I'm not very good at sports, why my handwriting's like Spider-Man. I always get told I've got spider handwriting, that sort of thing. So it answered so many little questions over the years. But for me personally, like, once I got over the hurdle of feeling a bit frustrated, I actually feel like it's a positive now.
I love that. To me.
Yeah, interesting question. I was diagnosed at the age of 4, so I can't remember life without understanding that I was dyspraxic. So, so it's always been part of my existence. But with that, all of that being said, like Charles said, there's a difference between diagnosis and acceptance. So when I was early teenage years, my mom and dad signed me up for the door program. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, and that was kind of like an intervention. They spent thousands of pounds to kind of improve my skills, but one of the things that they were advertising was trying to cure dyslexia, dyspraxia, and ADHD. Obviously, it didn't work. But the thing is, my coordination did improve just because some of the exercises were like practice throwing and catching a beanbag for 10 minutes every day, or balancing on a balance board. And you know that we obviously know that with everybody, whether you have dyspraxia or not dyspraxia, the more you practice, the better you become at certain skills. So, but it wasn't until I became 16 that I got really bullied in school, and I had this season of real mental health distress, and I was taken out of school. That I really came to an understanding that I was dyspraxic, and I should probably get to understand this more. And my mum and dad actually drove me down to the Discovery Center. I met Amanda Kirby. We got another diagnosis because we understood that my needs and my situation had completely changed from when I was 4 to when I was now 16. And it was at that age that I got introduced with the Dyspraxic Foundation, and I became part of the dyspraxic community. And I haven't looked back ever since.
Amazing. Athena.
So I don't remember personally when I got diagnosed, because I got diagnosed at age 7 in primary school. The teachers brought it up to my parents when they noticed that I wasn't hitting my milestones. I was quite clumsy. I couldn't do my shoes. And from there, my mum was quite a pushy parent in the way of she would push the school to get me support, physiotherapy, get me one-to-ones. So from that, I had a really great understanding about my dyspraxia and who I was all the way from the age of 7.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us. On to our next question. Have you experienced any misconceptions about dyspraxia from others? And if so, how did you handle them? I know there's been a few mentions this evening of things like bullying. I wondered if anyone would like to kind of go into detail on that a bit more, if you feel comfortable to, of course.
Yeah, I can talk about that. Children could, I mean, if there's something different, they'll really complain. But I think people used to laugh at the way I talk, the way I walked. For example, I was never a great gamer because of hand-eye coordination. So a lot of the kids didn't want to play Call of Duty or FIFA with me. I went to quite a sporty school, and I wasn't not the greatest at sport. I loved it, but I wasn't really good at it. And they just used to call me all sorts of names, and it really, really did affect my self-esteem. A lot of my parents and my family didn't really understand, especially uncles and aunties, because I was actually doing fairly well at school. So they were like, "What do you mean dyspraxia? Like he's able to do GCSEs and he's very articulate, so maybe there isn't an issue." But yeah, those were the kind of misconceptions that I had at an early age.
Yeah,
I
I think.
must say, oh, sorry,
No.
Crystal.
Go ahead, Charis.
Yeah, I must say that, like, I agree with Timmy to an extent. Like, I've been bullied most of my life because children are fickle things and they definitely know when someone's different. Um, and the school and stuff, they didn't really do that much about it. But people tell you it will get better when you're an adult. It doesn't. Those same people are also adults. And a lot of people, it's not that they don't know about dyspraxia, because that's one thing. It's that they are unwilling to know about dyspraxia. So if you try to point out information to them, they don't want to know. And they say things to you like, but you're just lazy. Everybody falls over. Everyone's a bit clumsy. You should just pay more attention. And you're like, that's not how that works. So obviously I wrote articles for the Dyspraxia magazine even before I joined as an editor. And some of them are responses to that. So obviously I wrote one called I'm Not Just Lazy. I wrote one for Red Brick newspaper as well, which is the University of Birmingham student paper, called We're Dyslexic. No, We're Dyspraxic and We're Sick of Judgment. That actually got nominated for a student publication award, but didn't win. But hopefully, by people reading more of these articles that I've written and other people's articles and talks like these, people can learn to not bring about these misconceptions. But people in society have to be willing to learn first. By just you just kind of learn to handle them because people say them all the time anyway. Not that we should have to.
Yeah, I definitely reflect what you've all both said there. Children are the worst at times. God, like as an adult, sometimes I hear children say to me some of the most horrific things, and they're innocent to a degree in what they're saying. But they will be very blunt, and they just kind of that they describe what they're seeing. But I also experience that with adults, which I find really disappointing because adults should know better than to just say something that doesn't require any immediate kind of feedback that has a positive outcome. So when people say things like, "Oh, you're very clumsy, aren't you?" and it's like, that's what a 3-year-old would say. They make an observation. You're an adult. But I've had people tell me that I'm slow, and I've said to them, it's not that I'm slow, it's that my body doesn't react to the speed that my brain is processing information. Or quite often, I experience the whole, "Oh, you're so cute and ditzy," and I'm like, because sometimes I stumble over my words or I say the wrong word to what I mean to say. And that can be really frustrating because it's almost like I think sometimes the over sexualization of some things towards women, for things like that. That's something I experience a lot. And I just kind of have to like think, do I shut them down in this situation? Do I educate them or do I just move on from it? And that can be exhausting because you feel like you're constantly having to explain yourself, constantly having to give reasons. Yeah, exhausting.
Yeah, and going on the back of what you said as well, you get a lot of things that are not compliments, but they think they are. So they're like, "You're different, aren't you?" That's not a compliment.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's backhanded.
Yep.
I often say the biggest lie that we say to kids is sticks and stones for me will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's a lie because words hurt. And if I would even go as far as say that words can have a bigger impact on someone's mental health, their self esteem, their self the way they look at themselves. So words are really powerful. I would say another misconception before I because I can ramble on about is the fact that dyspraxia is not as common as dyslexia or autism, which is a massive lie.
Mm-hmm.
Um in fact dyspraxia is even more common than ADHD and autism, but very few people know about that.
Yeah, you raise a really valid point there. There's lots of like factual misconceptions, like dyspraxia isn't as common in girls. We know from lots of most recent research that they are just as common in both boys and girls. We know that dyspraxia doesn't just affect coordination. Um, and yeah, it's almost like you have to know everything all the time to combat people who have these misconceptions. We'll move on to our next question, unless anyone else wanted to add to
Just
that
a
last
quick
one.
one,
Yeah.
Kristen, just that last
Yeah,
one.
sure.
Move on.
I'll pop that
The other misconception I come across a lot is the idea this is a childhood illness. That apparently, the day we turn 18, we're no longer neurodiverse. That all the issues just magically disappear at midnight the night before.
Yeah, I didn't get that upgrade.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
jumping on the back of what Phillips just said as well, 25 for most cherries seems to be a magical number where you no longer need help because you can't access it anymore after that age.
Mm.
But the help you need changes because you've got kids, houses, jobs, etc. Adult responsibilities, essentially.
Yeah, I just think like for me, like each day is different. So like yeah, we all have good days and bad days, but it's known as the dyspraxic day, isn't it? Where everything is just you fall over, you're clumsy, you drop things, etc. And then the day after, you're fine. Do you know what I mean? It's like last week. I live by myself, and I put the plate on my side. Well, so I thought, but I didn't. I missed it and smashed the plate. And then I did something else on my tea, and then when you just think, oh, I'll give up now because it's just one of those days. Um, but yeah, like through my childhood, like I was never picked for sports and things. I was always last, which I don't mind actually. And like hand-eye coordination for me isn't great, and like handwriting, and I don't hold my pen like everybody else. Like I don't hold it with a pincer grip. I kind of grip it completely because it's comfortable. It's like when I eat my dinner, I don't hold my knife and fork properly, and I eat a bit weird, but it's comfortable for me. But I feel like now I've joined the pageant community, I feel like it's more accepting, and there's quite a few of us known as dyspraxic queens, and we're there to kind of just be that role model, especially on stage where, you're walking, you're doing your turns, your poses, things like that. It's quite tricky kind of navigating all those things at once.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. It's like when you're eating food, the day that you choose to wear something light is the day that you drop all your food down your front.
Oh,
Mm,
yeah.
it's not great.
Absolutely, that is a shared experience. Um, so moving on to our next question, what challenges did you face that were different to those who don't identify as the same gender as you? Um, I wondered if anyone else wanted to go first on this one.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
happy to. Obviously for women, you're expected to be able to do your makeup and your hair. I can't plait. I really can't. Luckily for me, I have a husband. He learnt to plait. He will plait my hair. But
Perfect.
you're expected to be able to do all these things, and I can't do it. Like it took me years and years and years to learn to do a basic makeup. Like I model and I do vintage, like reenactment and things like that. Some of the hair they do in those scenes and some of the makeup, I'm just looking at it and I'm like, wow, I cannot do that. Like I'll learn to do one set of hair, one set of makeup, and that is that. One of the photographers I work with said my makeup was really nice, and I said, thanks, it's the only thing I know how to do. Like, I'd love to wear eyeliner, but it's not happening because I like to have eyeballs and I'll poke myself in the eye.
Or you embrace the wonky wings. I've
Hmm.
done that for so many years. So many years. I just always have my one side to the camera and then you can't tell. I wondered if anyone else wanted to share on this.
I think I
Yeah.
might.
Oh, sorry.
No, no, so I was stopping there. So obviously, being Irish and male, it's assumed we're all just incredible at sports. It's assumed was born with a hurley stick in my hand or be able to score a point from the 45. Not a hope. I think when it comes to me going anywhere near a Gaelic pitch, I'm more likely to be there as the first aider, not as a player.
Mm.
Yeah, sorry. I was
Mika's just.
just. Oh, sorry.
Go on,
Yeah.
Adrian.
And I go on,
Sorry.
Adrian.
Oh dear. I'm like it on a phone, like when it's like, are you hanging up first or is it me?
Mm.
We're there for ages. No, I was just gonna say, like, hair and makeup is a struggle. Especially the back. Like a lot of people can curl really well, and they can even do the back, but the back of my hair is just a mess. Um, but the thing I struggle with as well is obviously shoelaces, little ties, and clasps and things, and zips. Zips are like the worst thing, especially like in pageants, obviously with the dresses and stuff, they've got the tiny little invisible zips. I can't get those up for the life of me. I'm just like, can someone else please do this because I can't? Or if someone's like, can you zip me up? I'm like, I'll try. And then you get there and I'm like, ask somebody else because I'll break it. Sorry.
Yeah, I can see that Mika's put in the chat. I can't sew either. And my nan was a
No.
wedding dress seamstress. Like, so if I was going to sew, it would have been when she tried to teach me and she couldn't do it. But um, a lot of people still believe in gender specific roles, but me and my husband don't. So he can sew. He actually has a sewing machine that he wants to learn to use because gender doesn't really matter that much. You can do whatever you want, really.
Yeah, I think to me you might have in the past mentioned about having a very kind of mutual household in terms of chores. Did I make that up or have
No,
you spoken about that before?
no, you didn't. I just wanted to allow other people to speak. I think I even wrote about it as well with an article you'll probably So for me, there's a few things. Um, like in the West African community, patriarchy is still a massive issue. So similar to what was said before. As a man, you're expected to be athletic, good at sport. Even though I enjoy playing sport, that's just not me. I wasn't the fastest in my 100 meters at school. And yeah, that wasn't my experience. Another experience, my wife does the DIY. Maybe order something from IKEA. Like, I can't, the whole screwdriver thing, that's just, yeah, I'm not great at that. So, what I do to help her, I sort out the food. So while she's fixing the cupboard, I'm helping her with different things like that, and that's kind of like a flip on gender conceptions. Um, my wife is the one learning to drive currently, not me, because she loves driving. If I was the one learning to drive, it would probably take double the time. So we've decided that she should do it. And that's another thing that when it comes to gender, you wouldn't really expect. Also, being dyspraxic, one of my strengths is empathy. So, growing up, I had a lot more um, friends that were of different genders to me, and I think it's because number one, all the guys were playing sport and video games, which wasn't really good at, but I had really good verbal skills and just communicating. So I just love spending hours on the phone just talking to people, and the majority of those people were girls. So I built a lot of great and solid friendships that way, and some of my closest friends are still female as well. So
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. I think in my own household, in the past, gender roles have been completely flipped. Um, I hate cooking. It's my least favorite thing in the world. Every week having to think, right, what am I going to cook this week, and having to like plan out what I need to purchase, going to I hate going to the supermarket, having to navigate walking around with a trolley. I've got mobility issues as well, so pushing a heavy trolley is really difficult for me. Um, and so, in terms of managing meals and stuff, I generally try and leave that up to someone else. The only times I have taken charge of that is when I've used subscription services where they send you food straight to your door. You've got the perfect amount of everything, and there's a recipe card that's also in video form, and I generally get someone else to chop vegetables for me. And if there's like a pan or anything that's quite heavy, I get someone else to hold it because my wrists are just super weak, and I just cannot do that. But I'm really good at DIY.
hmm.
I like just yesterday I was up in my loft moving things around, moving like insulation and hammering things into walls. Not necessarily perfectly, but I do an all right job, I think. But yeah, I completely flip those around. I've just seen someone Simon's put into the comments, supermarkets are the worst, especially when they change the layout and I get so lost. Why do they do that? I know why they do it. It's to make you go, oh, here's a new product I didn't see last week. I'm going to have to buy it. And I fall for it every time.
Crystal, your point about DIY is such an interesting point because it emphasizes that dyspraxia affects different people differently and everyone's unique. So
Hmm.
once you've met one dyspraxic, you've just done that. You've met one dyspraxic, which was a phrase that I heard first at the Dyspraxic Foundation, and it's so true. So yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I wondered if anyone else wanted to add any more to that before I move on to the next question. No, that's fine. So, are there any strengths or positive aspects you feel have come from having dyspraxia? This is a really good one because quite often, even though it's really important to talk about the issues that face dyspraxia, there are some things as well that come about as a positive result of dyspraxia sometimes. So the first thing that springs to my mind, for example, is resilience. Quite often if we're facing people who are sharing misconceptions, we become very resilient to the things that people say. And I think that can be a really positive aspect sometimes. I wonder if anyone else wanted to share.
So two things I'd come in with that. Apologies. On one side is loyalty, particularly with the likes of friends and all that. It takes me so much effort to actually find friends that I try that a little bit harder and don't want to mess it up. So I'll definitely be more loyal and go over and above to make sure I'm saw there as being the good friend. And the other one I find is particularly my job as a tax consultant. A lot of people tend to have the same way of viewing stuff, but due to my dyspraxia, I view slightly differently. And sometimes that slightly different view could be something no one else saw that actually ends up going further than what and making a better outcome than what the general consensus was.
Yeah, I must
Amazing.
say
That's a really good
that I
insight.
agree with. Sorry, Crystal. I would say that I agree with Philip. I'd say as well, you're very unique because you know you're different anyway, so you're not afraid to be yourself. Because nowadays, people want to put other people in boxes and all the people look the same, but you're not really afraid to be yourself and look however you want because you know you're different. I'd also say that I'm quite loyal as well. Normally, when I say I don't like someone for a specific reason, I'm normally right. So when people say later on, that wasn't a good person, I say, well, I didn't tell you that. I also feel as well, like Crystal said, that it makes you more resilient or determined. I've done various things out of spite because someone said you can't do that, so I've gone and done it. That's actually how I got my psychology A level.
I love that approach. Don't
And
tell
I
me I can't do it.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
also wrote an article for the Dyspraxia magazine. I think it was last year, Crystal. Correct me if I'm wrong. On positive aspects of dyspraxia because
Hmm.
it's mostly the negatives people talk about.
Mm.
Yeah, it can be easy to be caught up on those negatives, can't it? And I think it's very important to talk about those negatives because it helps other people feel validated in their experiences and helps them feel seen. Um, I'm just looking at the comments and what other people have said as well. Mike has put, I think it makes us more empathetic. I would
Yeah.
definitely agree with that. We
Yeah.
find ourselves, in situations that can sometimes be a little bit negative. So our empathy tends to be a bit more risen, I guess, and a bit more aware of other people's emotions.
Mm.
Not necessarily for everyone, but I think some of us do feel that as well. Susie's put thinking out of the box and offering solutions are a strength for me. Yeah, I'd say that's quite a common one for
Mm.
us dyspraxic as well.
Yeah. I completely agree because these are some of the strengths that resonate with me, and I think thinking outside the box, seeing different things, that ties in quite well to some dyspraxics are quite entrepreneurial, so see opportunities that people don't see. Resilience, kind of really identify with. My parents used to tell me that they used to say if you want to me to do something, just tell him you can't do it, and then he'll show you. Um, I think my dyspraxia has also caused me to have good interpersonal skills and social skills, just because um, having dyspraxia is not only has made me more empathetic, but because I struggled with writing as a kid, I really developed and honed in my verbal skills, so my ability to communicate as well. And I think for me, another positive aspect of dyspraxia is that it's allowed me to find purpose with the Black Dyspraxic. I like my own company, and just being able to present and talk about dyspraxia in a different way, in a positive way, has been really positive. And I think last of all, which is quite personal to me, is that dyspraxia has really helped me with my faith as a Christian as well, because I just see disability and all of these things from a very unique point of view as well.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Um, did anyone else want to add to this one at all?
Um, I think it's enabled me to be a lot calmer and a bit more patient, definitely with myself, and others, because I am a lot slower at working, slower pace. And I think because of that, I'm quite a bit more relaxed. When I say relaxed, in my head, I might be going 100 miles an hour sometimes. But in terms of like demonstrating things to others and helping people, I'm a lot more calm if they don't understand it, because I understand what it's like not to understand. So again, I guess that comes with empathy and things like that. And I think now I've kind of grown into who I am, a lot more confident and in being able to be open about being dyspraxic. And again, I know it goes back to my title, but thinking, wow, I've done that myself and I'm able to be that representation to the future generation and other individuals in society.
Yeah, you raise a really valid point there about role models. And where we've kind of grown up in a time where dyspraxia is still so lesser known compared to other neurodivergent conditions, even though we know that 5 to 10% of the population is dyspraxic, there's still very few people getting the diagnosis. And then so having those role models quite, few and far between, especially who are adults, especially when you look at demographics who are less likely to be diagnosed, such as people from the Black communities, people from non-English speaking countries, women as well are much less likely to be diagnosed, even though those demographics don't affect their chances on whether or not they're dyspraxic. So to have those role models and to have you all here is really important to kind of helping other dyspraxics, especially the younger ones, feel seen. And to have that is really, really important. So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to move on to our next question, which I would like the audience to have a little think about as well. Even if you're not watching live and you're watching back on the recording, I'd like you to have a little think about this. What changes would you like to see in terms of awareness and understanding of dyspraxia in the future? So, for this question, I want you to think about how potentially Dyspraxia magazine could improve awareness, how researchers, teachers, occupational therapists, workplaces, what their understanding and awareness could look like in the future. Do pop your thoughts in the comments. Again, even if you are watching the replay, do share that with us as well. I wondered what our panelists might have to kind of include on that.
So I think I'll jump in there first, just get the ball rolling.
Sure.
One main thing I want around awareness and understanding is simply that people to be 100% certain that what dyspraxia is and there's no limitations in what you can achieve. Like, just to give a quick anecdote of sort of what I'm looking for. A number of years ago, I was working as a soccer coach at a Football Association of Ireland summer camp. And the Monday morning, this woman arrived up and she looks at me and goes, "Who's going to be coaching my son?" It's like, "Oh, Mark over there will be coaching. Why? Do you mind if there's a bit of a problem? I'm not sure who to talk to." I was like, "Look, do you want me to go over? We'll step into the gym there. You can tell me and I'll tell the relevant people." She walks in and she's still a bit of humming and hawing. She's going, "Well, the thing is, my son was diagnosed with dyspraxia last week." And me being socially awkward, I started laughing. And so I pulled myself back and I was going, "Look, sorry, I'm not laughing because your son's dyspraxic. I'm laughing because it was not the answer I was expecting. Look, truth be told you, I'm dyspraxic myself. I just got to look across of, but you're the coach." So that's what I want. That sort of idea that the parents, they understand, just because you're dyspraxic, you can achieve anything you want. That the main thing is people understand what dyspraxia is, that they know how to help the people with dyspraxia, and there are no limits on what we can achieve in life once we have the right mindset and skill set to achieve those goals.
Yeah, that's a really good insight. I think what I would like to see is around education, and um, the additional support that we give the dyspraxic students. At the moment, dyspraxia is kind of under the umbrella term of specific learning difficulties, even though dyspraxia isn't a specific learning difficulty. Yes, learning difficulty, but an SPLD is specific to dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia, whereas ADHD, dyspraxia, and autism aren't. But for the sake of education and because everything's too complicated to actually separate them into appropriate things, they're under the SPLD. And so, what that means is instead of those students getting support specifically for their dyspraxia, they're given the exact same accommodations as someone who is dyslexic, dysgraphia, ADHD, autism. And so, quite often, students in lessons such as physical education, they're not being given any like support there or any additional kind of specific needs to them, and that is very frustrating because there's the assumption, sorry, that all neurodivergent conditions are basically the same thing, and that's just not true. So I would love to see more accommodations specific to each neurodivergent condition, especially dyspraxia. That's what I would like to see.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry.
Go, Adrian, it's fine.
Sorry. Oh
No,
dear.
no.
No, I agree. I work in early years education. So I think key is probably early intervention. So start early in education. Um and sort of maybe just like and you've probably seen them, you know, the cards that you can get, which says I'm autistic, dyspraxic, what have you. Um Probably like tailoring them. So for example, I'm dyspraxic. I struggle with, for example, holding my pen. You can help me buy X, Y, and Z so that it's tailored to you as an individual because nobody's the same. And I think that will probably help individuals wherever they are, even if it's in the workplace, Um, for example, I don't know. I'm dyspraxic. I struggle with spatial awareness. You can help me by spacing out the room a little bit more, or put in little bumpers on the end of tables. That's just an example. But I think in terms of like education, I think if things are implemented earlier, it's not so much of a struggle later on. Well, I don't like to use the word struggle, but it's not so later on. It's sort of implemented earlier. Like some of you guys have been diagnosed earlier, so you've managed to get some tools and sort of your own coping mechanisms. And I think once you as an individual have got those, you're able to navigate through life because you understand yourself and what you struggle with and how others can help you and you can help yourself, if that makes sense.
I agree with what everybody has said, and especially what Crystal said about um dyspraxia not being a specific learning. Because I didn't know that, and it's so true about how fundamental that would be. But just even looking at a bigger picture in terms of awareness and understanding, I think dyspraxia really needs national representation. And and I think this is why I love the work that Dyspraxic magazine have done this week. I think we need more everything you need to know about dyspraxia, and we know about the whole Dyspraxic Foundation. I think that was a big loss for our community, because I think, yes, the awareness and the understanding is really important and the things that we want to see. But if we don't have vehicles to actually do that strategically on a national and international level, it might be quite difficult. Another thing, maybe this is for me as an academic, I would love to see more research into dyspraxia, because I think the more we get evidence and research, the more we can affect policy and change misconceptions as well. And yeah, there's a lot of awareness that we need to do. But I think another critical thing is it's important that we have um, education and understanding about from an educational perspective. But as we spoke about, we need more awareness of how dyspraxia affects adults. what interventions and solutions do dyspraxics specifically need in the workplace? Not as in the minorities, but dyspraxics. How can we support dyspraxic people in employment, in different types of relationships? So there's a lot of work that we need to do across the board. But even dyspraxics that are over 60, what does support look like? Especially when the older you get, the less likely you are to fall. Coordination becomes more difficult for anybody that is over a certain age. But what does that look like specifically to when you're dyspraxic? I've never heard anybody talk about that, and those are the kind of conversations that we need to have.
Yeah,
I
wholeheartedly
must,
agree there.
I must say that I agree with most people. Similar to Philip with his football. I used to do archery. I was very bad at it because of the dyspraxia. One thing I could do though was coach. So I used to coach archery. I actually made a gold medal barebow archer. But some of the other people in the club didn't believe I had any business coaching because they were like, well, she can't do it. So why is she teaching it? Clearly, I could teach it. He went from missing to bringing a gold medal home. Like, if you're able to do it, your background or personal abilities shouldn't factor into it. And people definitely like shouldn't talk about you behind your back. As well, I think there should be more um, openness to understanding because we can put all the resources in the world out there. If individuals in society who haven't got dyspraxia won't engage with it, you won't get anywhere anyway. And as I said, I was diagnosed at university, but they treat it as the end of the process. They just kick you out the door basically with your diagnosis. Um, I think universities, colleges, schools, workplaces, particularly those that work in education and things like that, or the NHS, should have access to things like, obviously the Dyspraxia Foundation's closed now, but like the Dyspraxia magazine or Dyspraxic Me or other charities like that out there, to give this information to dyspraxic individuals so that they can go through the process of realizing that there are other people like them, and then getting that acceptance of their dyspraxia, because having the word written on the piece of paper is not the end of the journey, and it needs to not be treated like it is, because as I've said and as Toomey said, it can take a while for personal acceptance of it. That's a whole different thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Athena, I wonder if you had any thoughts about what you would like to see kind of increase with awareness and understanding.
I think something that I would like to have more understanding about is dyspraxia is more than just clumsiness. When I do my social media posts, I get quite a few comments saying about how it's just clumsiness, and then I have to like educate that it's not just that.
Amazing. I'm just reading through the comments now that are coming through, and we're seeing a lot of things in there that are very similar to one another, wanting to see it, in media representations. Someone mentioned that in the past, Disney, for example, have done shorts on things like dyslexia. There's a children's show at the moment called Bluey that has discussed some wonderful topics, and I know it's a big hit with adults. And I agree with the comment on there. It would be great to see an episode about dyspraxia for sure. There was one mention earlier from Adrian about being able to present information cards. Dyspraxia magazine does actually sell information cards on dyspraxia. I think it's going to be reversed here. It's not specific to each individual person, but it does list on there, some my disability causes trouble with, and it has a list of potential things there. And on the back, it just kind of gives a brief explanation on what dyspraxia is, and some suggestions of reasonable adjustments. The same with the other cards, ADHD and autism. But I agree that we would like to see more personalized things within the workplace and within schools around that. So thank you so much for sharing that. And again, thank you to everyone who's been commenting as well. It's really great reading through those. My last question of the evening to our panel members is, what advice would you give to someone newly diagnosed or someone struggling to navigate life with dyspraxia? Kind of thinking back to what Toomey said there, getting the diagnosis is one thing, and then the acceptance can often come much later on in life. What advice would we give to those people?
I'm happy to start. So one thing I would say is you're going to fail more than you succeed, but you will learn more from failure than success. This is something we apply in obviously archery, fencing, things like that. That I'm involved in. You can then obviously learn through these experiences, particularly because obviously dyspraxic people are very resilient. Even though you've failed, you will still get back up and try again. For example, I got U's in lots of practice history papers, and I have a master's degree in warfare now. Um, Applying yourself despite the failure is a really important thing to do. And I'd also say you're not on your own out there. There are other people like you. Go on Facebook, there are hundreds of groups. Go on LinkedIn. Maybe you'll be able to find some people in your local community as well. And just because you find something hard doesn't mean you can't do it. I'm a terrible saber fencer, but I really enjoy it, so I still do it. There's this view, because of American capitalism, really, that you have to be very good at something to do it. You don't.
Absolutely. I honestly reflect that wholeheartedly. When it comes to sport, there's this idea that you have to be good at it in order to take part. I'm terrible at sports. I don't think there's any particular sport that I've really nailed down, but if you enjoy it, it's worth doing.
Completely agree.
You don't have to be perfect at something to enjoy it. If you like painting, but you're not particularly, great at keeping in the lines, as it were, but you enjoy it, so do it. You know, I would say that with a number of things in life. If you enjoy it, it has value to you, and that's what's most important.
Absolutely, Crystal. What you're saying, what you're saying there is it. Like the advice I'd give to the people coming through is just because you do it differently, or just because it takes longer, doesn't mean you won't get there in the end. Sometimes it can be as much about the journey as it is about the finish line. And like that, if you enjoy something, you get value out of. It doesn't matter if you can last every week. But they say it doesn't matter how many times you hit the floor; it's how many times you get back up that matters.
Definitely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
There's one thing that's coming through, and I think it's not even just applies to dyspraxia, but it's just every individual. We need to not have a fear of failure because from failure is how we learn. And just to add to what everybody said, one practical way is I would say follow everybody on this group, on this panel. All the sessions that have occurred with Dyspraxic magazine, engage with their content. There's Even though there's not many, there's a lot of platforms, advocates that are doing things, and know that you're not alone, but actually be intentional about engaging with that content, because you can see that people that have those struggles and that you can identify with are living life with dyspraxia. And yes, we have our down days, but we have our great days as well. Another advice that I would say is that yes, there's bullying and people laughing at you, but my dyspraxic moments can actually make me chuckle. And sometimes when I'm in a safe space with people that I love, and the psychological safety, um, dyspraxia can really add a lot of humor. So my other advice would be make sure you don't take yourself too seriously as well, and learn to laugh sometimes. At sometimes, because some things you would do would be quite comical. I'm not sure if people would agree with me on that.
No, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
That psychological safety among, friends and family is so important, finding that group of people. Because you know what, sometimes when you fall over, it is funny, as long as you've not hurt yourself. And we can have a giggle at these things sometimes, and there's a difference between laughing at someone versus laughing with you. And if you find those right people, they can laugh with you, and it can make life really fun. Wonderful. Um, in a moment, we're going to look at questions that have been sent in to us. So if you have any burning questions that you're just dying to ask our panel members, now is the perfect time to do that. Before we do move over to Q&A, I wondered if anyone else wanted to add on to that last question at all. If not, I'm just going to put my thinking face on while I go through the comments. Oh, and I forgot to add, so just in the top corner here next to me, there is a QR code to a dyspraxia survey. So, in about a week or two's time, I will be attending a Dyspraxia Awareness Day where I will be putting together a presentation to a number of researchers, occupational therapists, groups, parents, and things like that. And so, in this survey are a list of questions that I would really love to present to them. So, if you are dyspraxic, please do fill out this survey. It will only take you a couple of minutes, it's just a few questions, but it would be really, really helpful. And it's my way of showcasing your voices of the dyspraxia community, what you want to see and what you would like other people to know. So whilst we do that, so we've got our first question here from Rosemary. How have you tackled awareness barriers in your life? Would anyone like to answer this one at all?
I'm happy to. So I found pick your battles is important. You're not going to win them all, but I've also found it's easy to just tackle it head on. And a lot of people are more willing to learn than you think they are, but they're not all. So sometimes it's a battle you're just going to lose. For example, when I worked for City UK, the manager I worked for asked me if I'd give a small talk to the team about dyspraxia, and I did. And because I was frank and honest and open about it, she was very surprised by that. But they learned a lot about it. So the more open you are, the more people will learn.
No, definitely I agree with you there. Openness has a lot to do with it. But the one thing I've seen any times I've had to sort of tackle the awareness, I've also made sure to go with the positive and not just the negative stuff. So there's, look, I can't do A, B, and C, but despite my dyspraxia, I've managed to do E, F, and G.
Amazing. I've just got some questions that have come through on Instagram. So bear with me. I can't bring those on screen, so I'll read them out. So let me just check. So I've got one from Lee that said, I also want to be an advocate for dyspraxia. How can I get involved with the magazine and with the rest of you all? So to answer the question on how you can get involved with the magazine, we're always looking for blog entries, articles, and things like that. The information for how to submit that is on Dyspraxia Magazine's website. And we are also looking for volunteers for other areas. So if you go on the website, there's a jobs page. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you know that really bottom bar that no one ever looks at, there's a bit on there that says, I think it says jobs. And if you select on there, there's a selection of volunteer roles. And you just have to email through with information about one of those. But advocacy in general, you can do yourself through your social media pages. And that could even be just from sharing posts from our other advocates, anything that Tumi or Athena shares, anything at all, to creating your own posts, making YouTube videos and TikToks and things like that. I don't know if anyone else wanted to kind of share some examples there or how they might be able to get involved with yourselves.
Yeah, I think just another thing that just came to mind, even with people on here, maybe we can create something where we collaborate more on content and things like that. And if anybody wanted to collaborate on content, you know, we are a friendly bunch. Reach out, and I think, but advocacy doesn't necessarily have to be online, and then you don't have to do it as part of an organization. Sometimes the best form of advocacy occurs through dialogue, through conversation. Um, that kind of happened to me the other day. One of my friends, um, found it strange that my wife came from Nigeria and she's the one learning how to drive and not me. And he was like, you've been in this country for so long. How you? And that was a good opportunity to be like, but actually, I am dyspraxic. And you were like, what's that? And that was a really good opportunity for me to, um, when I told that situation to my wife, to my family, they were like, you don't have to explain yourself to anybody, which is true. But I don't want to shy away from opportunities to advocate, because sometimes explaining myself is an opportunity to advocate. And you'll find that you'll always find situations to do that. If someone says, oh, where have you tripped over? Or I've made a video about someone saying your shoelaces are untied, and you can be like, actually, the reason why my shoelaces are untied is because I actually find it difficult to tie my shoelaces because I'm dyspraxic. Obviously, you can't do that to everybody, but you'll find that if every dyspraxic did that every single time, can you imagine what that would mean to our society? Everybody would be get to know what dyspraxia is.
Very
I'd
well
say as
said.
well, like if you start with smaller advocate things, then you can obviously start to pick up and grow, because you're not going to get obviously invited to panels and talks straight away. But if you go on like Facebook and LinkedIn and any of the dyspraxic community groups and share your thoughts and things like that, you can build up from there, and then you can get obviously invited to panels and talks and things like that.
Knowledge is power. Wonderful. We've got another question here. I love this username. The buzz of Emma B. That's great. How do you deal with mental health and having overpowering emotions? This is a really good one, and something I think perhaps a lot of dyspraxic people face. The kind of mental health side of dyspraxia can be quite overpowering sometimes. Would anyone like to lead on this one?
Yeah, I would say a few things. Having a tribe, even if it's one or two people that you trust, that you love, can be really, really important. Also, not being too hard on yourself for having those emotions in the first place. You're human, you're dyspraxic. Don't be angry with yourself for having overpowering emotions or struggling with your mental health. Go through it. It's okay to seek help. It's okay to talk to a GP. It's okay to reach out for support at your university, for example, or look for counseling. It's okay to take medication as well. Remembering to sleep, remembering, things like eating healthy and exercise are really important for mental well-being as well. I'm gonna stop there because the list continues, but I'm gonna allow other people to speak.
Um, I always find like going for a walk, just seeing anything greenery, and also like talking to my safe person about my feelings, even if they don't have any advice, just letting my emotions out just really helps. Yeah.
I'd say knowing which battles to pick and which ones to leave. I'd also say, as Tumi has said and as Athena has said, surround yourself with people who can help you, but knowing as well like how much information to give people and things like that. So obviously for me, I've got my husband, I've got my mom. Like my husband is really good at supporting me, and I really don't think I'd be able to do most of the things I can do like without him. And obviously give yourself a break as well. Like sometimes you're just going to find it hard. Find things you enjoy as well, whether that be big things or smaller things as well.
I am a huge advocate for counselling. And I think it's one of those things that's best used before you reach a crisis. I know a lot of people will generally reach out for mental health support once they've reached a bit of a dark place. But if you can get yourself into counselling, if you can afford it, I understand it's quite a privilege to have access to mental health support. But if you can access it while you're in a stable place, that's when you're best able to learn from those sessions and be able to then put into place those learnings when you reach that crisis. It's great to be in those services when you reach a crisis to kind of keep your head above the water, but the real work is going to happen when you're in a more stable place. If you do find some services inaccessible because sometimes there's really long wait lists. Not all services are suitable. I know sometimes CBT can be quite triggering for some people. There's lots of different types of things, but you can get access to some things on your phone that are completely free. And one thing I recommend at least looking into is using ChatGPT, which might sound really strange. Why would I use ChatGPT? ChatGPT answers random questions that I have, but you can use ChatGPT to ask questions so long as you set the conversation of, I would like to use this as like a therapy style conversation. Obviously, the human element is not there. It is going to be extremely robotic, of course, and it does not replace that human interaction that therapy gives. But if you are in a bit of a crisis situation and you need something to reason with you, because sometimes when you're in those overpowering emotions, reason does not exist. And so sometimes using a service like ChatGPT can just help you talk through those things. And it's free to have, and everyone can have it on their phone. So that's one thing I'd recommend. The other thing I'd recommend, which I think Adrian will love, is that if I've ever felt a little bit blue and I need a bit of a pick me up, I used to pretend to put a crown on, stand in front of the mirror and imagine myself with that crown on and just really feel empowered. And I took it a step further and bought a variety of different crowns so that I could take photos to remember that moment of how I felt. But even just that action of pretending to put on a crown, it may sound silly, but honestly, give it a go, because it can really give you that little pick me up, even if just for a few minutes you're having a little giggle at yourself because you've just put an imaginary crown on your head. I really recommend that. Okay. So I think we're going to leave it there now because we have run over by 6 minutes. But before we go, I want to just share an image with you. So one moment while I bring it on screen. So during the week, Charis sent out a link where people could respond and answer this question: how does dyspraxia make you feel? And so it's produced this word cloud. Is that the correct term?
Yeah, that's
Um,
right.
and this just kind of shares how we feel as a community. So I can see an awful lot of words in there, both positive, some negative, some very insightful. And this just goes to show how, as a community, we feel. So some of the things on there are misunderstood, frustrated, and confused. But then there's also other things on there that I think are really positive, such as unique, empathetic, challenged. Um, and I think it really goes to show, as a community, some of these words are kind of repeated as well, just how connected we are. Sometimes
Yeah,
we can feel different. Go ahead.
the most common answers were so frustrated 6,
Mhm.
confused 6, clumsy 4, different 4, isolated 4, anxious 3, creative 3, or embarrassed 3. So there is a mixture of positive or negative, but I'd say it's more leaning negative in the most common words.
Mhm. And that can sometimes be, what we hang on. But as we've discussed today, there are some positives in there. So it's really good to see. One that sticks out to me is make new dance moves. Sometimes when you have a clumsy little moment, you just kind of, shrug it off a little bit as a new little dance move. Um, so thank you to everyone who submitted those today, over the week. Apologies. So this is now the end of Dyspraxia Awareness Week. Thank you so much for joining this panel, and for everyone who's watching, who has interacted with us, shared the events, and left comments and asked our panel members questions. Again, I'm just going to highlight the survey here. I will share the link across our social media pages as well. But once again, thank you all very much, and I hope you all had a wonderful week, and hopefully we'll see you next year.
Can I just say, I wanted to say thank you again, Crystal and Karis, for organizing it this week. Um, I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it, and I'm sure a lot of people in the dyspraxic community really appreciate it as well, because people can watch the replay throughout the year. So what you've done is amazing. So well done.
Thank you very much. Okay,
Thanks, team.
well, goodbye everyone. Have a wonderful rest